panelists. So I still just, Marissa has so much energy, and it was just really inspiring and refreshing to kind of see their approach to Super Bowl. The biggest thing I have is, how is Shaggy's It Wasn't Me 20 years old? I think it's just absolutely crazy. But yeah, I'm really excited to be moderating the panel. I think we have just a collection of world-class marketers. I think we can all agree that the last year, we've all had a marketing masterclass on the art of the pivot. And so the purpose of today, we're really going to take a look at what took place last year, what's taking place now, and then I think the really kind of exciting moments when we're going to talk about the future. So to get started, I would love to have Amy get started, just to kind of talk a little bit about some of your key partnerships, what you've learned along the way, some of the pivots you've made, and yeah, I would love to hear actually about gaming for selfish reasons.
Well, thank you for having me. I think you talk about some of the sort of changes and experience that everyone's had. I think this year's presented certainly some unprecedented challenges for all of us, for brands, for teams. Some of the biggest shifts, I think I have to commend some of the leagues and teams on looking at how you preserve the level of competition, within these leagues, both from traditional sports and from gaming. Jeff, I think that too, there's a lot of leagues that made some shifts there, and then continuing to bring that viewing experience, have these in-person engagements, which a lot of fans sort of look for throughout the year. So I think first and foremost, commend the industry on that. And then I think, just thinking about brand activation, it's looking at sort of how do we as brands sort of deal with that. And it's a big shift for rights holders, for how we look at activating. And so there was a couple of pivots that we made this year, specifically related to quite a few of our partnerships, but specifically related to our MLB partnership that I'll share with you guys, both at the local and national level. And so for T-Mobile, we're fortunate to have a service, a network that connects people virtually and has grown thanks to our merger with Sprint. So we looked at that as a big strength for us to build on. And so, at the local level, we historically have had these localized experiences where we arm trucks and retail stores with these ways for consumers to engage with players in store and other assets. And we had to transition to a virtual model for all of these localized experiences. So our objectives weren't different. We still wanted the brand engagement. We still wanted sort of that lead generation opportunity to build our business. But we managed to create digital fan experiences that still delivered against some of those objectives and brought fans a way to engage with their favorite teams, their favorite players. And so, it started with baseball. We've expanded it to other partnerships. The program we created originally was the Beyond the Bases, which is a video series hosted by Taylor Rooks, who's fantastic. And she talks to all-stars and home run derby champion like Pete Alonso, Didi Gregorius, Javi Baez, Luke Voigt. I mean, you hear from Luke on his favorite pizza in Chicago. And it's just these great behind the scenes sort of personal insights from players that I think in our minds was a way that we could bring a different experience to fans, knowing that the year looked a little bit different for them and finding them sort of ways for them still to enjoy their favorite sport, their favorite players. And so program was really well received. We expanded it to our Kansas City Chiefs partnership, which we recently added thanks to our merger with Sprint and second headquarters in Kansas City. So we were thrilled to evolve it. The Chiefs Kingdom has been phenomenal, and tuning in and seeing Travis Kelce and following him on his journey through the playoffs. We're all excited to cheer him on this weekend. And then, really quickly from a national level, we also wanted to look at how do we rethink sort of that broadcast approach and everything else in these big moments. And so thinking about going into World Series this last year, which looked a little different. There were some fans in the stands, but it definitely looked a little different. We wanted to leverage really the strength of our 5G network and look at how do you build this immersive experience, even though most folks are at home, and experiencing this in a different way this year. So we armed players with player POV cameras, 360 cams, and just created this other immersive experience for fans heading into the first game of the World Series. So a few things that we did this year. Definitely some things we're looking at even more going into 2021, but some of the examples of how we change things up this year.
Yeah, I think seeing you actually having the Kansas City Chiefs going into the Super Bowl is just talk about the perfect timing of everything. Now moving on to Mark. Mark, first off, where are you exactly? And secondly,
to socially distance over here, in the back of the new S-Class Maybach.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd love to kind of transition into you to kind of talk a little bit about 2020 and some of the changes you made. I think one of the things that really stood out to me was Q2 with you. It was hey, we're what's this reset moment? What does the rest of this year look like? If you could go into some of the observations you made, the pivots you made, and kind of how everything fell into place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Amy definitely touched on some of it. I mean, as we saw what was transpiring in March and thinking about sports and the entire sports portfolio, I think there was a lot that was outstanding for us to figure out, are live sports going to happen, right? So, of course, some of the big things like Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, a few of the other partnerships that we have out in San Francisco with the Chase Center, are certainly big physical locations that we knew likely would not be packed as they had been in 2019. And then as we looked at our larger properties like the US Open, the Masters, and the SEC College Football Championship and regular season, we really started to wonder, are these things going to happen? And of course, we all know the Masters pivoted to be played later in the year, which of course is something that the creative that was timed for April, we had to look at to make sure it still made sense when it actually was played in November. All of it was originally created before COVID. So of course, there's definitely some of the spots that you look at or you may tweak. And at the same time, there were some new spots that we were able to add in because the timing had changed. So adding in an S-Class spot because that car had been shown to the world by the time it was played in November was an example of where we could leverage that opportunity. But I think most notably, it's really how do you pivot in creating content? And I think that was one of the top marketing areas for 2020, where you had to do things really differently than you had in the past. You know, it's the first time we didn't have creatives on set at TV commercial shoots. We actually shot our summer event commercial at our MBUSA headquarters because it was the safest place we could think of with no one going into the building. And even the campaign specialist who worked on that literally washed the cars for that commercial himself. So definitely, you know, trying to minimize and socially distance. And I think certainly can talk a lot about the content that was created, but, you know, for a lot of our brand ambassadors and the people we have relationships with, from Matt Ryan to Drew Brees to Zion Williamson, having them actually create their own content for all of our channels and their channels, where, you know, probably their kids were the creative directors and brains of the operation to produce some of that content, is definitely a big shift that we all saw in 2020.
Yeah, Mark, and I think one of the things that really stood out to me during our conversation as well was you were talking about the lead gen opportunities you normally get like on site. Like, how did you guys approach those with your business?
Yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of these events are high traffic events. You know, obviously 2 stadiums where you're expecting a lot of foot traffic, some interaction with the product. Certainly the automotive category and Mercedes-Benz cars, when you see them and you can touch them, you certainly get that quality story even that much more. So we really had to make it up with digital tactics. And I think not unlike other industries, we saw digital metrics in 2020. I mean, absolutely every metric across the board showed customers are doing more online. They're willing to go further online than ever before. And we saw it as a major shift in the way that people shop and plan to purchase their cars. Of course, you saw probably many of the ads we created specifically around our COVID procedures and protocols as it related to buying a car or shopping for a car, and ultimately working with your dealer to complete that deal and have your vehicle delivered in the driveway, or how you would service your vehicle and potentially take options that you've never taken before, like home pickup and delivery and things like that. And of course, all of that drives to digital metrics that you can now see and track. And across a lot of other industries, we'll see how much of that consumer behavior goes back to what it was pre-pandemic. But I think, you know, a lot of people recognize that's the luxury of time is one of the most important things in a lot of people's lives. And the opportunity to switch back and have more of that time is something that I think we will stick post-pandemic.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things that was interesting also when I spoke to Dan was, they're a technology services provider and they help bring back sports as part of their partnership. So Dan, if you could kind of talk a little bit, I think specifically about the NBA bubble and things that you did with the NHL. I mean, it was really inspiring to see like how you guys came together to power those operations.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. First of all, Mark, I can't wait to go for a ride in the Maybach. It's awesome. But yeah, no, I think our corporate mission, our corporate mantra is really around how do we improve people's lives, make the world run better and improve people's lives. And so that comes into our sponsorship strategy as well. And so similar to the ways that we were out working with governments, municipalities to help them with testing procedures, pharmaceutical companies, and supply chain logistics, and rolling out some of the distribution of the testing and that we kind of took that and pivoted with our partners. So with the NBA, when they were trying to put the bubble together in Orlando, we found some ways to work with them where they could reach out to not only understand fans engagement with doing that in a fanless environment, how people were interacting with the game, whether that was through watching it through the team's channels or on site, but what kind of feeling they were getting in terms of the bubble, or even there on site with the players and the team personnel, just in terms of health and wellness and making sure that they had everything that they needed. And so collecting all that information and working with the league to kind of help them understand what that those responses were, and in a small way that's what we're looking to do, right? That's what we've always done with our partners, is to try to help them run their businesses better. In this case, it happened to be with respect to the pandemic that was happening, and so similarly with the NHL, right? We had begun to work with them around this on-bench coaching application. So on all 31 teams, there's an iPad with an application, an SAP application that we built with them and for them, with partnership of Apple, and really it was the first time we got to use the player and puck tracking mechanism, because it was a controlled environment. Everything was happening in two locations and two sites, and so we were able to kind of see how that pulling that data straight from the puck and from the players as they tooled around the rink, right? It really just it helped accelerate a lot of that digital transformation that we're already working on with the league. And so those were great ways where we were able to take it. And I won't say take advantage of the pandemic, but we were able to leverage what was going on to tell stories that were compelling and timely, and showed and demonstrated how SAP helps enterprises run better.
Yeah, I think the idea of digital transformation, and it was one of the things that we talked a lot about the other day. It's just like it's accelerated everything 3 to 5 years, in a direction, and I think it's helping to move the business forward. And I feel like that's a perfect transition to what we want to talk about, which is what is the future of sports sponsorships and marketing. Amy, you guys have such amazing assets. Like, what is going to be these changes you've implemented in the short term? What are those going to look like in 2022 when hopefully everybody's vaccinated? We can be in in stadiums. I got to tell you, like I'm planning out my next 18 months, and it's going to be the best 18 months of my life. So, Amy, I'd love to hear kind of like what does the future look like for T-Mobile?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the rest of 2021 and the future, I think we look at 2021 expecting it to be a little bit of a hybrid year, right? We're really excited for, I think we're all excited for more in-person, experiences when we can get there. But we know it's not going to be an overnight shift. So we're looking at sort of how do we leverage some of the ways that, the learnings that we have from this, and we're really leaning into sort of the power of our 5G network, and looking at how we can create experiences for fans both in the ballpark, but then also at home because we just know that's going to be a continuation. And so lots of those discussions happening right now. Some things we can't talk about just yet, but lots more to come, you know, in 2020, 2021. What I can share, you know, one of the things that we signed in 2020 was a deal with Drone Racing League. And the goal is to innovate and look at 5G wireless drone technology. And together with them, we're creating a custom racing drone that's powered by our 5G network that's going to enable a stream and a pilot POV view of these races in real time, which oddly enough is actually, you haven't been able to sort of stream these things in real time before because these drones go so fast. So it's going to be a really incredible sort of immersive viewing experience. And those are the types of opportunities that we're looking at leaning into, that I think the pandemic has accelerated a little bit in terms of these different immersive viewing opportunities. But you know, with 5G and everything else that we've got available, our expanded network, we're really excited to bring some of these things to life here in the future.
Do you think the future of like the in-person experiences are going to mean for your brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, you know, the in-person experiences, you're going to continue to see an opportunity where people want to be in person, they want to have that, but I think these other immersive viewing experiences are going to come alongside that, right? So whether you're at home or sort of in stadium or in arena, you're going to continue to see that. So I think just, you know, from our network, we're thrilled with sort of the capabilities that we have and the opportunities that we can take to sort of deliver some of that digital transformation that you talked about, Dan, and looking at just new ways for fans to engage that way.
So Mark, clearly the car that you are in is the most innovative thing we've ever seen. What does the innovation look like, and what does the sports marketing landscape look like, you know, come 2022 or the end of 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I think Amy definitely hit on the head that we're not going to see an overnight shift in 2021. And of course, if you asked me in February of 2020 what the year held, I would have gotten it super wrong. So who knows? Hopefully it's not a terrible prediction in 2022. But I think we're definitely going to continue to see the digital growth. I mean, you said 3 to 5 years. We've typically been saying 10 years as just kind of that explosive growth. And with that, you know, certainly the broadcast of live sports has always been incredibly important for any advertiser because it's an amazing tune-in opportunity where people can't, you know, time shift the live sports nearly as much. But I think what we're seeing is a lot of connected TVs and a continued growth in connected TV, which also provides opportunity for more addressable advertising inside those programs. So I think that is definitely an opportunity that's going to continue to grow as the whole, you know, advertising landscape continues to get more digital and more addressable and more personalized. I think the idea of nimble content is here to stay. We also saw a huge explosion of the micro influencer in 2021 or in 2020, where these people with smaller reaches broadcasting their more normal lives are really having an impact inside the marketing ecosystem. And for a lot of those sports stars and celebrities, it's not just about their professional career anymore. It's about their whole life and the way that social and their brand is integrated into it. So I think we will see more of that, and brands really finding their ways into the social lives of not just celebrities, but content creators by their own right that are exploding in these new channels, right? Clubhouse is something almost no one heard about in 2020, and literally I think it's been the darling of 2021 already. And then the last is we'll have to see if the sports worlds do shift a little bit. I mean, there is an explosive growth of esports. We're a global partner of the League of Legends, and seeing how some of these sports that would have been called non-traditional a few years ago are really taking parts of the world by storm. And the pandemic, I think, only accelerated the growth of some of these new categories.
Yeah, and I think, Dan, you kind of kicked it off with the digital transformation. Where are we going? Like, what does this future look like? Because I'm, you know, it's never been more challenging with the past year we've gone through, but also like more exciting. And you're somebody that it's very apparently thought a lot about what that looks like. What does the prophecy say for the future?
Yeah, I'm pretty much a genius if you haven't figured that out. But yeah, no,
Clearly.
we're all still trying to figure out. I will say, you know, to Amy's point earlier, right? I think people are just desperate to get back. You know, I think, and you were mentioning it too, get back to, you know, being with people and being around people and enjoying things the way that you used to, and going and sitting in the stands or wherever at a game and just taking that atmosphere in. But I do think that, you know, when I say the acceleration of that digital transformation, I think we were able to test a lot of things that, you know, would have been staggered over the course of the next few years, and it wouldn't have been, you know, the petri dish that we had over the last 12 months. And so I think, you know, there's a lot of things you figured out how to actually run some of these, you know, these virtual sessions, right? So how you can expand the reach of maybe assets that were in your contracts that traditionally, you know, were kind of local and on site and physical, and you hadn't really thought about how you transform them into a digital format. And so I think there's that. I think the other part is, you know, as you start to look at some of these opportunities with the rights holders and the properties, right? That in the past, a lot of the digital assets kind of came along with that, and, you know, and some of them, you know, as platforms kind of grew, they became front and center in those discussions. But I think a lot of us are going to be a little bit more in tune with, okay, how do I get out in front of this? And I'm not going to just take whatever platforms here. I need to start to think about, you know, 2, 3, 4 years out, where I'm going to be, how I'm going to be using these assets based upon, you know, what I've learned over this past 12 months. So I think there's going to be, you know, a lot of that type of thinking and discussion and negotiation that goes into, you know, how we're working with our partners.
Yeah, I think I had a moment probably about 6 months ago. We threw a giant tournament for the Ignition Series Valorant, a new IP that come out from Riot Games, and there was a watch party where one content creator had 100,000 people just watching the actual live stream. And it was like, I'm getting a glimpse into the future, and it was just truly like a beautiful moment. And I think, you know, to Amy's point, you're going to be on your phone in the venue. You're going to be, you know, seeing different views via 5G enabling. I think it's just never been more of an exciting time. Jake, are we up on time?
It looks that way, guys.
All right. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, guys. It was great conversation. Thank you for joining us. Certainly bring your expertise on sports marketing. And it was great to hear your perspective, certainly on fan experiences and touching on how that and what that looks like in the near future. And Mark, I certainly loved you talking about the addressability of sports and what a huge opportunity that is in the connected TV space. Couldn't agree more. I might be